Hey guys, I have 10 tips for you to improve your cityscape nighttime photography. Hi guys, Trent here. I wanted to talk about improving your nighttime photography. I got 10 tips for you on how to do that. I got into night photography when I was doing a lot of business trip back in the early 2000s. I would go to my business trip and then go have dinner and then just come back to the hotels, and then I needed a hobby to kind of do, and I picked up photography because I kind of wanted to document the places I've been, the stuff that I saw. So I started taking pictures, but the only time I could take pictures was at night, and my pictures were just dark and it wasn't very good. So I started just reading up on how to do better photography at night. So anybody could do night photography. I started with a little point and shoot camera that only did JPEG, that didn't do RAW, but just trial and error and understanding my gear, I was able to do it. So anybody who wants to do night photography, you could totally do night photography, especially with the level of camera and the sensor right now. Anybody, even on your iPhone or something like that, you could still do photography for nightscape. So tip number one, get yourself a decent tripod. Do not go to Walmart, do not go to Target and pick up those $40 tripod. Those are not worth it. The reason for that is they are really cheap. They're actually really dangerous. If you put your camera on there, you're going to lose your camera, you're going to break your gear, and it's going to cost you more in the long run. So try to go for a little bit more decent price tripod. I have a couple of tripods I review that are good enough for DSLRs, and they're sturdy enough to do nighttime photography. Do not use the $40, $30 tripod, those Joby ones. They're not good enough to do nighttime photography. You're just going to lose your camera gear. For example, I had a friend, I lent him my lens, and the quick release plate snapped off. The lens fell to the ground and just shattered the lens. So, he paid $40 for that tripod, ended up costing him $500 to replace my lens. So it's not worth it. Invest in a little bit, something $80 and above will get you a really good tripod with a nice locking mechanism on there, so you won't worry about dropping your camera and it being stable enough to handle nighttime photography. So tip number two, ISO is your sensitivity to light. So the lower the number, the less light it collects at a given period. The higher the number, the more light it collects. But as it collects more light, the grain structure, there is more noise in your image. You're getting less sharp, less contrast. So you want to be on a tripod at the lowest ISO you can. So ISO 100 for most camera. Tip number three, you can't do night photography on automatic. You have to learn to shoot on the more advanced mode. So the shutter priority, the aperture priority, manual. So the quickest way for me to get out there and shoot right away is I shoot on aperture priority. I know what I want. I want my aperture to be a certain f-stop. I know my ISO is going to be the lowest it can. So the only thing that's going to fluctuate is the shutter speed. So a lot of time I just get out there, I focus, I put on aperture priority, I fire away, and I get my exposure. If it's too dark or too bright, I use exposure compensation. But if it gets a little bit too tricky, then I switch it over to manual and just set all my settings that way. But it's important to get off of automatic. There's really, if you're on automatic, your camera is going to be bumping the ISO all the way to 1600, 3200. So it's not going to give you any clean image. You're going to get some really noisy images, and it's not going to be crisp. All right, so learn to take your camera off of auto. But if you're watching this, I'm pretty sure you're not shooting auto. Tip number four, understanding aperture. Aperture is very important when it comes to nighttime photography. It's either you shoot wide open or you shoot really closed down. And on both sides of the spectrum, you get different effects. So, when you shoot wide open, f1.4, 1.8, a lot of the time, if the subject's very far away, it's going to be in focus, but the stuff in the foreground is going to be very blurry and out of focus. If you want everything to be in focus from the foreground, the background, then you stop down your aperture. So learning aperture is really important in nighttime photography. A lot of people like starbursts in their shot, and they tend to close down their aperture too much. When you close down your aperture too much, it gets to this thing called diffraction, and that's when physically when all the spectrum try to comes through a little tiny pinhole, it distorts the image. So you're not going to get a very sharp image. So if you want to stop something down, going all the way to f16, f22, you're not going to have the best and sharpest image. So I recommend you take the lens that you like, go out there, shoot it wide open, shoot it midway, shoot it closed down. You're going to have a good understanding of what your lens can do and cannot do. So try out your lens, understand the aperture. Tip number 5, to get the sharpest image you can, use live view manual focus. A lot of people use autofocus, so I want you to go out there, use your autofocus, focus on something, lock your focus, and then go to live view, magnify 10 times. I'm really pretty sure 9 out of 10 is not the sharpest it can. So if you put it on live view and you just manually focus it, you will see the fine micro adjustment that you need to get everything sharp. So live view, magnify 10 times, use manual focus, and focus on the subject you want. So if it's a building, you could twist it a little and you could see the fine tuning in there, and you'll get like maybe the sign on the building sharp, and maybe that's what you want. Tip number 6, use your remote shutter, use your trigger, use the app on your phone. So do whatever it takes to not have to click the shutter release and take the picture right away. Give yourself a 10-second timer, a 2-second timer. 2 is better than nothing, because when you click on it, you still have motion from clicking, and so your image is going to be blurry. So sometimes I use the Canon app for my camera, and I'll put it on tripod mode and I'll trigger it through the app, or I'll use live view with a 10-second timer. Once you click it, you just let the camera go for 10 seconds, and then I'll fire. That allows the camera to stabilize and then fire. A lot of times it's going to be like a 10-second exposure or a 20-second exposure. So any of those movements within those time frame, you're going to get a blurry picture. So it's always good to have a released remote shutter. 7, shoot in RAW. Yes, that dude with the hair, he's right. Shoot in RAW allows you to retain a lot of information in the dark, so you could take it to the computer later. When I first started, I was just shooting JPEG. I was a little silly monkey taking pictures with JPEG at night. I didn't do anything with it. I just said, oh, this looked great, and I used it like that. But as I grew more of a photographer, understanding what I can do, I need to shoot in RAW. And so that takes us to number 8, process your image. Just because you shoot it doesn't mean you're done. Process it. Open up the shadow, take down the highlight, change the tint, do color correction. So take the image and make it yours. Take it to post-processing, do whatever you need to do, make that image yours. If you don't have Lightroom, there's a lot of free apps out there that you can still process with. Number 9, shoot at blue hours, or a little bit after blue hours, but don't go too far, because then your city and your sky is going to turn from blue to like black. So black sky against the buildings, it's not very appealing. So you want to shoot blue hours, a little bit after blue hours, you still get a little bit of color, but don't go too far out, because then it looks too dark. It doesn't look good. The only exception to that, I believe, is when you have a lot of clouds and you have city lights bouncing out the clouds, and you want to do a long exposure and you get the clouds movement in your pictures. Those look really attractive. I really like that. So that doesn't take away from the blue hour. So that's your only exception. If you can't get blue hour, or a little bit after blue hour, that's probably what you want to do. So tip number 10, understand basic photography, what makes a great picture. You have foreground, background, the subject. So things you want to put in front of the subject. It might be somebody with a crystal ball or something like that, or it might be a car in front of the building. It might be a person standing in front of a building. Those things brings depth to the image. Leading lines from road taking you to the subject of the buildings. So when a viewer looks at it, I'll make it a more interesting picture to look at. Instead of saying, oh, that's just a building. They're going to say, oh, there's a person in front of that building. What's he doing? If you use the basic photography rules, your image is going to be more interesting. And people are going to take a few more seconds to look at it. They're going to say, that's going to be a better picture. Go out there and shoot. Enjoy it. Enjoy shooting at night. I love shooting at night. You know, it's really calming. I get to relax. I get to set up my tripod. I don't have to worry about shooting people or anything like that. It's just me, the camera, figuring out my settings. What do I want to do? Do I want starburst? Do I want a long trail? Do I want to capture the motion really quick? So everything is just a challenge, just to be out there, enjoy the night, enjoy the quietness of the city. Also very important is take somebody with you. You know, there's security in numbers, especially if you're talking about city. There's always somebody to look after your back, especially if you're like lost in thoughts and you're really focusing on your camera, you're focusing on your image, you're focusing on. You might have a buddy that would look around for you. You know, so return the favor when he's really into something. You know, and scan the environment for each other. And just take care of each other when you're out there. Alright guys, if those tips are helpful, do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe button, tag me with your photos if those tips help. So guys, that's my 10 tips for you guys. Go out there, shoot. If you like this video, hit the like and subscribe button for me. Remember, be kind, be nice, and support each other. Bye.